Out of the blue, Craig said to Bobby, "I'm going to marry her." And Bobby said, "Marry who?" I'm Joseph. This is Input English. We join Craig and Bobby in Craig's room. They're doing a recap of the day's activities. Bobby said, "Why would you want to marry Charlotte?" Craig said, "I think she's really cool." Bobby objected and pointed out that Charlotte is 3 years older than Craig, and she's not going to want to spend time with a young kid. Craig pointed out that with his own parents, his mom is 4 years older than his dad. He realized from that pattern that age in adulthood just doesn't really matter nearly that much. 3 years difference in school might be a big difference, but as adults, it's nothing. He explained that to Bobby, who was unmoved. Craig summarized by pointing out that when they get married, Bobby should remember this talk we had. This occurred during the Christmas break. The new neighbors have moved in. Charlotte and David are the kids, and David is home from college. He will soon be going back to college for the spring session. Kathy and Robert thought this would be a good time to get to know their new neighbors a little better, so Kathy issued an invitation to them to come over for lunch. That invitation was accepted. So on this day, at about 11 o'clock, the new neighbors, including the two kids, David and Charlotte, walked around and knocked on the front door. They were ushered into the house, and then everyone adjourned out to the back patio because the weather was nice. Kathy had prepared a nice lunch, and there were refreshments available. All the introductions were made, and they settled down at the table to get to know each other better. Lots of questions were exchanged because these two families really didn't know each other. During this lunch, each family got to know quite a bit more about the other family, and the kids were all included in the discussion. After lunch had completed, they got up from the table, and Kathy started clearing the dishes to take them back to the kitchen. Robert suggested that the boys help. And Kathy said, "No, I've got this. This is easy." Charlotte and her mother decided to help anyway, and so the three of them cleared the dishes back to the kitchen. David asked if the boys wanted to play catch, and they said they would like to do that. He asked if they had a ball, and they produced the ball that they usually throw for Oscar. No baseball mitts were used. This was all bare hand. So Bobby, Craig, and David adjourned further down the yard and started to throw the ball around between the three of them. Now this, of course, attracted the attention of Oscar, who wanted to play. It was common for Bobby to drop the ball, at which point Oscar would pick it up and carry it to someone so that it would be thrown. David suggested that maybe they should include Oscar in the rotation, and so the four of them could play, each throwing to someone else, knowing that Oscar isn't going to throw the ball. Everyone agreed, and the first throw went to Bobby. Now this was when David first noticed that Bobby was a little scared of the ball. When it started coming directly at him, he didn't know exactly how to catch it, and it appeared that he was very concerned that he was going to get hit in the face. He started out with his hands, fingers up, and then as the ball came closer, he turned his hand this way and missed the ball. David thought, this kid needs some lessons. Now, David was thinking back to his own childhood because this was his problem when he was 7 or 8, and his dad had taught him how to field a ball coming toward him. He remembers being scared of the ball. He remembers how his dad taught him to get control of the ball. David thought, this will be fun. Bobby threw the ball to Craig, who easily caught it. Craig threw it to Oscar, and then Oscar brought the ball back to Craig. Then Craig threw the ball to David, and now it was time to see how Bobby was going to catch this next ball. David didn't throw it very hard, but he did direct it right toward Bobby, who again, at the last minute, changed from trying to catch the ball into trying to guard himself to prevent being hit by the ball. This resulted in another drop. David stopped this part of the game and turned to the boys and said, let's work on Bobby's catching the ball. Would that be okay with everybody? Bobby and Craig thought that would be fine. The ball would not be going very fast, and this is a rubber ball, not a hard baseball, and so Bobby should not be fearful of the ball. David said, don't turn your hand over, catch it with your fingers up. He tossed Bobby an easy lob, and he missed it. The next one, however, he got. He kept his fingers up, and the ball came within reach, and he caught it with one hand. They repeated this many times. Each throw was a very easy throw, not too fast, and David varied the location that Bobby would catch the ball on his right side, on his left side, or right in front of him. Occasionally, Bobby would turn his hand over and miss the ball, but increasingly he was able to catch the ball. Now it was time for Craig to throw the ball to Bobby, because David knew that he was going off to school, and if Bobby was going to practice catching a ball that's coming directly toward him, he was going to need some help from his older brother. David made recommendations to Craig on how the ball should be thrown and cautioned him against throwing it too hard. We're not trying to scare Bobby, we're trying to build his confidence. Craig understood and complied. While this was going on, Craig found himself looking a little bit to the left beyond this game of catch to catch a glimpse of Charlotte. He didn't want her to see him looking at her, but he felt compelled to keep his eye on her. David noticed that Craig was not always paying attention to this game of catch, but he didn't understand what was going on. Over time, Bobby's ability to catch the ball that was coming directly toward him improved a lot. David understood that this would have to be reinforced over weeks and was not something that we could call a finished project at this point. David recommended that Bobby and Craig work on this together, and that Craig could gradually increase the speed of the throw, but do so carefully, because we don't want to have Bobby get hit in the face, get scared, and then lose all the progress he's made. David asked if the boys had baseball gloves, and Craig said yes. He had played Little League this past season, and so he had a glove. Bobby does not have a baseball mitt. While all this was going on, Oscar was not receiving a lot of throws, and so he lost interest and wandered off. So now it's just the three boys. They'd been doing this long enough that they were getting thirsty, so they stopped the game for now in favor of getting some refreshments. There was ice water on the picnic table, and they sat down and drank their water. David asked Craig about his experience playing Little League this past season, and Craig explained that he had been playing shortstop and second base. His team was called the Yellow Jackets, and they did rather well that season. They didn't win all their games, but they won a lot of them. It was about this time that the adults came back and settled into their chairs around the picnic table. David reported the progress that they had made with Bobby and his ability to catch. David rather boldly pointed out that Bobby had told him that he doesn't have a baseball mitt, and perhaps it was time for him to get one. Bobby's parents, Kathy and Robert, were a little surprised, but they agreed that it was probably time to get a baseball mitt for Bobby. David went on to explain that in coming weeks, Bobby and Craig are going to practice with the idea of improving Bobby's ability to catch a ball that's coming straight toward him. He reported that they had made a great deal of progress because when they started, Bobby was flinching and trying to avoid being hit, but later on, he became a lot more confident and focused his eye on catching the ball rather than avoiding injury. This whole discussion made David's father very proud because this was exactly what had occurred 10 or 11 years earlier, because it was David who was the timid young boy trying to not get hit by a ball coming straight toward him. And it was his dad who taught him the skills to focus on the ball, keep his eye on the ball, and catch the ball. Kathy and Robert were thinking it is a time to get a baseball mitt for Bobby. David's parents were feeling very proud of David and how he had taken charge of this learning opportunity. Charlotte was grateful that not all the attention was focused on her for once. Bobby is thrilled with the prospect of getting a baseball mitt. And Craig can't keep his eyes off Charlotte. If you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.